2025 is ending, so we're going to round out the year with a quick little roundup of the last little bit of news scraps, and it's kind of lean. There's some bad news about indie MMOs, some good news about some indie MMOs, and one really cool merging of two of my favorite gaming genres from RPGs and MMORPGs. So let's talk about it. But before we do, I need to preempt you and warn you, because I'm finally back in my home, in my office, in what is essentially a work in progress, because the water damage has been fixed after 6 months of jumping around hotels and Airbnbs. It's fucking dark in here. Sorry. I'm not used to it. Changes. The floor is different too. Hi, welcome. So, we're gonna talk about MMOs. I didn't mean to scare you. First, to surprise probably no one, Camelot Unchained's not launching into early access in 2025. I know that's just a complete shock to everybody that was holding on to the fact that they announced that they were doing it. But they're not. Back in September 2025, it was announced that they'd be going into early access in 2025. They even released a video saying they'd go into early access in 2025 back in October. A video that has disabled dislikes and comments, which is always an awesome sign of goodwill. This is perhaps due to them, as they say in their own words, taking Camelot Unchained down to the studs and are in the process of rebuilding it, which probably isn't what you want to hear at this stage for the game, especially right as they missed their own announced early access launch, one they fumbled communication on right up until December 26th, when they didn't really own up to missing that date either, and instead just kind of said essentially that their next steps are break the build tests. From the outside looking in, it sounds odd. Why go through the whole effort of putting out a 2025 video if you weren't kind of at least somewhat sure that you were ready? And then if you did go through that video, why not at least communicate that at least sometime before? Because it wasn't like they made that video and then had communication. I think this is where I get the most frustrated with this whole thing with Camelot Unchained, because it's not like they're doing stuff that other like MMOs haven't done. This is stuff that Ashes of Creation has done, Pantheon has done. This is the kind of stuff that Kickstarter MMOs are kind of known for doing. This is stuff that non-Kickstarter MMOs do. It's just they're doing it and then they're like hiding it. Just own up to it. I think that's the thing that's the most annoying here. Say that you fucked up. That's all. And that's what I think that's really what's like making me so frustrated and making me just a little bit sassier with Camelot Unchained here. The announcement they did make is pretty nebulous. It's unclear how long this is going to take. So at least going forward, they aren't pinning themselves to some new date, I suppose, but it's a strange way to communicate, to say the least. Given that Unchained Games, the studio making Camelot Unchained, has already since announcing Camelot Unchained, launched a spin-off game, and summarily closed that spin-off game, I guess they want to get this one right. I will say this though, at least they have actually launched a game, unlike some very, very opinionated Twitter trolls that still haven't launched their Kickstarted game. But moving from one bit of bad news to another, this one hurts. This one hurts because I had hope for this one. Because we gotta talk about Fractured Online and their recently announced rebrand. A game that I thought had potential. Potential not just when it was first announced, but potential when it was kind of like gone back into itself to remake itself. Until now.
Hey everyone, Duncan Davis here, game director for Happy Cauldron Games, and we want to announce the new direction for Fractured Online. Fractured Conquest. Conquest genre is still an MMO, but focuses on being a dark fantasy persistent warfare game. We believe players who enjoy Foxhole, Anvil Empires, Warborn Above the Ashes, and other similar PvP games will enjoy our vision for Conquest. Though that's not to say that PvP won't play a crucial part, even solo gameplay will in fact be critical. Without players gathering, processing, crafting, transporting their equipment and resources, the PvP crowd might just be in the middle of a battlefield boxing with commoner clothes. But let's put it into a little bit more detail. You will play a crusader set in a fantasy post-cataclysmic Cataclysm event setting. You will choose a war, join a faction, one of 3, fighting for control in large open maps. By joining the war, you will contribute through all of your actions to the faction's progression. Everyone will play a part, whether it's front lines, transportation, logistics, or crafting, gathering, processing. Conquest is a new game. It will have new abilities, animations, buildings, creatures, resources, whole new graphic style, stat systems. Pretty much everything has been rebuilt from the ground up. So why are we going this way, you might ask? We want to focus on the aspects of the game and making sure that we can deliver on the things that players enjoyed most, rather than delivering an over-bloated game that isn't coherent. As players, you've probably seen a lot of these things lately, and they don't often pan out. So what does this mean for the Fractured Online future? Well, we're closing that chapter in how that game was built and designed. It was already shut down early 2025. We believe.
You see, they've even dropped their name with this recent rebound, now calling it Fractured Conquest, ditching the multi-purpose sandbox Ultima Online style of a full-on world MMORPG for something more tightly focused on PvP only. And as far as I can tell from the reveal and from Massively's write-up, the new version is supposed to be a constant PvP warfare game where crafting and harvesting feed the constant PvP. Like, I guess, living in the world. This is about as far as you could get from what felt like a more balanced, almost arguably PvE focused MMORPG that even split PvP off into its own world of like demons, or had a more balanced approach with the human world having PvP and PvE, and then had a PvE only world, at least before they had to descope. And you gain skills through killing specific enemies in PvE. PvE felt like the focus of Fractured Online, at least initially. I can't really argue with them making changes though, because Fractured Online itself was essentially a dead MMO. It had a dwindling, non-existent player base and had never really caught on. The devs were working primarily as volunteers after severing ties with their publisher, but after being bought out by a superfan, the hope had been refinements, especially around combat, which sounds like this is one of the things that actually is being refined, to be completely fair here. But a complete revision of the game feels extreme and a little heartbreaking. But I guess if you want to try it out to see what kind of constant warfare PvP MMO feels like, Fractured Conquest will be a $30 buy-to-play MMO with a cosmetic-only shop. Yet again, Fractured Online will become another MMO that tried to follow in the footsteps of Ultima Online and sadly failed to do so. Responses to the announcement have been at best mixed, with roughly 50-50 split positive and negative likes and dislikes on their video, with sterling comments like, "I bought an MMO and got whatever this is. Fuck me, I guess." Now I think I understand why Camelot Unchained turned the comments and dislikes off on their video. I guess fans of the sandbox skill-based grind type MMO like Ultima Online, well, you'll just have to kind of keep playing Ultima Online. Now let's move from some of that negative shit into some positive shit. And we'll start with Monsters and Memories, because we're moving forward and advancing with another MMO that's making some really good progress. So I want to talk about it. Monsters and Memories ended the year with a big old test that I sadly missed, but many of you got to play. But the test wasn't the only big news from Monsters and Memories that dropped. In fact, they dropped a whopper of an update on their website on Christmas Eve, December 23rd. They dropped some key dates going forward for their March to early access to put in your calendars. Alpha will continue through January and February of 2026. Beta will begin in March and go through April, and then they'll lock the build on May 1st to allow them to work on all the critical fixes and ugly, awful, game-breaking crap in there before hopefully going live with early access launch on June 1st. Of course, all of these dates are subject to change. keeping in mind that Monsters and Memories is pretty unique in that their team is all volunteers, and many have been volunteering for years. In the update, they say they'll reduce scope if necessary to get into EA and potentially move those things that they reduce into specific post-EA updates, but will also continue to provide insight on any updates or changes, something that you can see on their Trello board for their beta requirements, which I'll link down below if you want to get into the nitty-gritty. It's pretty extensive, covering everything from classes to taming to fizzles and more to come. Monsters and Memories has been a very good team at being very transparent and communicating pretty much anything you want to know, whether it's on things like their Trello board or on their Discord. So if you want information on the game, the information is there for you to find. You can also find it on their various streams. Many of their team members stream all over Twitch. So if you want information on Monsters and Memories, you can find it directly from the sources that are making this game. This is probably one of the most transparent teams out there. But if you want to play the game, if you want to play in these tests, you have something to go do. You need to go do something right now, and it requires your fingers. Go to the website. Now, if you want to opt into the closed testing, you can do so on their website. You don't have to pay. You just opt in like you used to, like in the before times. It sounds quaint, doesn't it? You just go opt in. So go opt in now if you're interested in being part of these closed tests leading up to early access in June. Just because they're going to have these closed tests though doesn't mean they're going to stop having these open tests though, like the one that just happened. So also again, the Discord, that's where you'll find the most updated information on when these tests happen. So you can go jump in the stress test and all this stuff so you just like go in and jump in and play and get and die and lose die a lot. Just die. Maybe that's just me. It's probably just me. Anyway, let's move on to our next game, which is Pantheon. Pantheon's update isn't so much an update as it is a series of updates. There's a lot to cover, so I'm really just going to hit the highlights, but suffice it to say, I think we're finally seeing a place where Pantheon and Monsters Memories will be diverging a little bit, and I think that'll work for the benefit of both of these games, with Monsters Memories aiming more hardcore 1999, and Pantheon aiming more 2001-2003 era of EverQuest, while both will add their own quirks and techniques. Here's the highlights for what will be changing with Pantheon over the next few months. First, they've already added taming to the game with the latest update, at least the very first iteration of it. This is the only way you can obtain mounts in the game, and you essentially do so similar to how you might in, say, Ultima Online, by leveling up your taming skill, taming wild horses out in the wild, all while they beat on you with their hooves and their gigantic tails. Like, they are just extremely large tails. There's also a really cool bug in the game that if you tame enough, you shrink down like itty bitty, like in who shrunk, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and like drink really tiny. And here's a screenshot. It's fucking awesome. I love bugs like that. I hope it stays forever. It's rudimentary at the moment, but it works with enough randomization of stats on the horses you do tame to keep you interested to try find like horses that like sprint faster or sprint longer. Everyone gains access to the ability to tame at level 20 by completing a quest. The quest itself also plays out using a little bit of the perception quest system, which I hope continues to trickle in, though that has been painfully slow. That is what's in the game now, but what's coming is bigger. And with these big updates comes the first wipe to the game since early access dropped. I want to repeat that so that if you're playing the game now or plan to play, the first character wipe since early access's start will be coming in spring of 2026. So it's not happening now, it will be happening in spring of 2026. So anything you do from now until then is gonna be wiped. But they also have double experience right now, so keep that in mind. That wipe will be coming with these changes. Enemy types will be changing to a unified mob type, no more elites and solo mobs. Instead, all enemy types will merge. Think of this like Pantheon used to play like World of Warcraft Classic and Vanguard with mob types. Now it's going to play like EverQuest. To compensate for these changes, time to kill is going to increase and overall difficulty of mobs will increase. But this should allow for more organic grouping instead of the hard wall that existed between either solo everything or kill everything with an optimized group of 6. With this, the overall experience grind is going to be reduced. Another major change is crafting is going to be separated from adventuring, so you can craft your little heart out, and crafting will be able to fail. It sounds like crafting is going to be going sort of more towards the EverQuest 2 style, though not as involved as the EverQuest 2 style, which was its own little mini game, but at least being completely separated away from the adventure system that is currently, where they're locked together. The mastery system is going to be coming online, adding in new ways to customize your characters. This isn't going to be as extensive as like the World of Warcraft system, like the talent system, but it still should be able to give you ways to kind of specialize your characters a little bit. On the side of some like quality of life things, you're going to be having a player market that'll be coming online that sounds a lot like an auction house with some restrictions on what can be sold and fees attached to it to try and encourage some players to player sales. If I were to hazard a guess, it sounds a little bit like an EverQuest 2 auction house, though I didn't see anything about craftables to expand how much you could sell or anything like that. They'll also be adding a post system in game, like mailing things to your characters, which is something that a lot of people have been asking for a long time, but there will be cooldowns on how fast you can use that. Because all of this together is going to be making items more accessible to more people, some more rare items will start to become bind on equip, reducing the number of those items in the market. Those items can still be salvaged or sold to vendors, but overall it's going to make it so those items won't like flood the market. Or at least that's the hope. We also get a roadmap for the first half of 2026, which includes all of the aforementioned with a lot more info, including things like rafts and small boats coming in on spring, as well as several new areas like Body Dakara, the long-awaited sea zone. But in the near term, it's significantly leaner for January and February, with the Nightfall Crypt as the only content update. And for gameplay updates, the only thing is the Summoner ability update. In the summer for 2026, we should get the Dead Shoals, Wild's End updates, Ahirith City updates, Fairthale, Veywood, South Shoal, as well as seamless zoning, the quest system, fishing, etc. They go on to talk about later in 2026 actually leaving the continent to go all the way over to Rainfall. It sounds like 2026 will be a very interesting year for Pantheon, to say the least. Seeing these changes for Pantheon, I gotta say they feel welcome. The game always felt like it was straddling too many lines. It always felt like it was leaning too hard into challenge, but I think somewhere along the way, it seemed to have lost some of what drew a lot of people to it. People like myself. I didn't come to Pantheon to get my face kicked in. Like, sure, I wanted more challenge than WoW, but when the challenge that WoW was offering you was basically just getting hit with a wet noodle up until you got to the end game, that's not exactly hard. Like, you don't have to like go all the way to Elden Ring to be more challenging than WoW, right? So that like putting all of your hopes into the challenge bin felt like you were going too hard into one direction while ignoring so much else. So I like that they're kind of branching out, like hopefully branching out into more directions here, although there still seems to be one glaring thing missing from this roadmap. And I'm gonna keep banging this drum, but where the fuck is perception? There's still nothing on here. The quest system is on there. But one of the hallmarks that has been on Pantheon from the very beginning is perception. There's nothing about the keeper system. There's nothing about the perception system really on here. If that gets thrown away, a lot of what made Pantheon stand out when it was announced, when it was like sold as a game, kind of goes away. So I hope that comes back somewhere in the second half of 2026. So that's one thing, big glaring concern that's coming into this update for me. Because a world to me requires a whole lot more than just challenge and ego pumping. Stories are not just about triumph and failure, but also exploration and mystery. But now I want to talk about a really cool story. about bringing forth something from the RPG realm into the MMO realm that I thought was really freaking cool. And I just thought like a really, really fun announcement to end this news story. Let's talk about Star Wars: The Old Republic in Baldur's Gate 3.
Hello, everyone. We are excited to bring you an exclusive interview with someone who's joining us on Star Wars: The Old Republic. Samantha Bayard is joining us on our new story here with a character that we've had in the story for some time. This is the first time we get to hear them. So we're very excited to have you and to chat about how this character is coming into our next story updates, including the one that we finally got to hear her speak.
Our last update is a short one, but it's a really cool one. If you, like me, not only like Star Wars, but also Baldur's Gate 3, because the actor who portrayed Karlach is coming to Star Wars: The Old Republic. Samantha Bayard was a tour de force as Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3, and they're bringing that talent to the MMORPG that is perhaps best known for its voice acting, for good or ill. Bayard will be taking on the role of Darth Null, a former Jedi Master who was expelled from the Order for beliefs in how to conduct Force training. Apparently, she's even had a cult. I mean, cults are cool, I guess, right? Can we form a cult? What would a cult do? What would my cult do? What would it be called? It's another entry in what's been a continued ride for Star Wars: The Old Republic since it was jettisoned from EA and BioWare to what felt like the gallows at the time of Broadsword. Broadsword was this tiny little company that was the steward of Ultima Online for EA and really didn't do, well, they didn't do shit, okay? Like, I don't know how else to really put it. When they got it, they weren't really doing shit. They kind of just like kept the lights on mostly. But since getting this infusion of a good portion of the Old Republic's team, the venerable Star Wars MMO has continued on. The MMO's updates might not be what they used to be, but they weren't what they used to be for years, long before Broadsword took over. So seeing an actor's announcement like this with name recognition is pretty damn cool, if you ask me. Not only that, but Broadsword has actually been doing stuff with Ultima Online now as well. So they're not only doing stuff with Star Wars: The Old Republic, adding in new updates, changing things, making dynamic events, doing like new story content. They're actually doing new stuff in Ultima Online. It's weird and cool to see like this developer actually doing stuff when they hadn't been doing stuff for years before. So just kind of a cool thing to see them actually bring in the name recognition of an actor like Bayard into Star Wars: The Old Republic this far into the game's history.
Our paths are not destined. They are forged. Shaped by ambition and fear. The desire for power. The need for control. The price of obedience. We allowed corrupt doctrines to dictate the paths before us. No longer. A change is coming to the galaxy, forged from pain and rage and sacrifice. My chains are broken, and now I will break them all.
I'll be back soon with a longer video on the MMOs for 2026 and beyond, like that I'm still excited about. And then believe it or not, there's actually still quite a few. Some are like not necessarily AAA, but like more like AA, as well as a couple of the indie ones. And I've had to take a couple on the list, like Fractured Online used to be on the list, but there's still quite a few that I'm really excited about. I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic 2026, and I hope it starts out really, really well. My name is Redbeard Flynn, probably soon to be Graybeard Flynn. Thank you so much for watching this video. Whether you have been here for 4 years or whether this is your first video, I really appreciate you. Please be kind to each other, and I cannot wait to see you again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Oh my God, I died? No way. Oh shit. Apparently that was too far of a fall.